how's everyone doing? Actually, where's my music? There we go. All right, quick follow up to what I wanted to talk about, or what I was talking about when it comes to cherry picking in certain subject. Oh wow, what is the Steam button on screen? Bit of a bug here. Okay, so yes, I was talking about cherry picking. I was talking about selecting with a specific agenda in mind, and I did forget to add examples of such. So I'm kind of sorry for that. Maybe I'm expecting a lot. Maybe I'm just rushing through things a bit too fast. Definitely rushing through things. So, okay, let me try to add a bit more of an example on how cherry picking kind of works, similar to what Arnita Sarkeesian is doing. All right. So let's say I ask you all for some donation. Okay, let's put it all back into context. All right. I'm asking you all for donation for a, let's say, video series about African Americans in video games. All right. It's a subject. There are a lot of African American type of characters in video games nowadays. So let's see. Let's see. And I'm gonna try to be to shut myself into that perspective of I'm not supposed to know anything about this or about the games. I'm just looking at blunt information. All right. So keep that in mind, and I'll try to keep that in mind. So, okay, let's say I got all your funds. Thanks again. Oh, thanks a lot, guys, for supporting this. I will do some epic work with this subject and topic, yada yada yada. So, let's say you start the video series talking about African American characters back in Nintendo. And at that point, there wasn't that many. So maybe I can start off by saying, well, back in the NES era, there wasn't that many African American characters because, and now I can link up to Japanese video games not having, let's say, exposure to the outside, and a big example of racism when it comes to African American representation in Nintendo would be in that Tom Sawyer game that was never brought. Maybe I can get you guys a picture of what I'm talking about. Let's see. So in that game, that Tom Sawyer game, there was a representation of the character that's called Jim, which is an African American character. Yet, let's see. I'm trying to Google at the same time I'm trying to do this. So there was a representation of this character as a very stereotypical big-lipped, big red-lipped African American. I mean, okay, look at this. This is Jim. This is the way to represent it. So I can cherry pick and go into that by saying, well, they were extremely racist in the way they portrayed this character, and it is quite offensive, showing that Japanese, look at that, there you go, showing that Japanese people are very, very racist in their representation of African American, okay? But again, this is from a person, a non gamer, that looked into it without playing the game, without actually playing the game. So from that perspective, I could go even further and go into look at Street Fighter when they made the character called Mike, who looks doesn't really look like Mike Tyson. Well, that character barely had any impact on the Street Fighter lore and can be considered this kind of throwaway character, which could kind of represent how African Americans in such games are, you know, stereotypical throwaway characters that you just put in to beat up. Again, this is being non-gamer, all right, looking at it from non-gamer's eyes. And I could go even further by referencing Fatal Fury. Some of its African American characters are never brought back because, again, they are throwaway stereotypical boxer character. Now, one of these characters or character type that stayed is Balrog from Street Fighter, who is portraying or portrayed as this African American pimp type character who is into a lot of underground and shady business. Again, like, just keep in the back of your head, all right? Non-gamer and cherry picking these things. Now, for whoever played Street Fighter or actually knows what the characters are all about and the evolution of some of these characters, they won't really give that much of a fuck. And it's true. Like, you play as Balrog, okay, it's Balrog, who cares? Oh, DJ, he's a smiling Jamaican person that has absolutely no impact. As a, as a player, you won't really gravitate towards the subject of let's represent African Americans in such a way. It doesn't really matter to a gamer, and the developers didn't really try to put any of these topics up front. They were just working on making characters. Now, if you guys want me to go even deeper with this bullshit, let me continue. Okay, I went from, let's say, Balrog and DJ, okay? Let's go into RPGs where Final Fantasy VII had this character called Barret, who is the stereotypical African American that will slang, curse words, and have a high temper, along with being a single parent to a daughter called Marlene. And yeah, like I can just hear a lot of people just calling bullshit on it, and it's true. Why? Because when you play Final Fantasy VII, you look at Barret as a character, a respectable character from your party, as a person you can rely on in battle, and as a person with an evolving story, not as a race or a stereotype. It doesn't really matter, right? But when I do research from an outside perspective, and I have to look into such things to prove my point, these are the things that are going to be brought up. And these are the things I was taught in college. This is the typical way to debate or to start debating, even though this is a video series which I should concentrate on talking about those issues. Yet, we could get into terms maybe a bit later, or hell, there might be better speakers when it comes to debates versus opinions versus facts. All right, because this seems to be the whole vortex we are stuck in when we talk about the whole feminist versus tropes versus games, or wow, feminist tropes versus video games. So you see what I'm talking about? Like the whole concept of cherry picking in order to supply your argument slash topic slash agenda. And this is where, I strongly stand on the fact that there is a credibility issue when it comes to Sarkeesian and working with content in such a manner. I mean, hell, if I wanted to go further, I could go into King of Fighter and talk about the basketball or the sports team, which had a tall black guy that was a basketball player and just yell out stereotypical, or hell, I could even go all the way to Coltrane. But guess what? In those games, as a gamer, when you play these games, you're playing a fighting game, you're playing an RPG, and you're seeing these characters as allies or competitors, not as stereotypical racial profiles. You understand what I mean? It's a bit difficult to just hash out and display as a non-gamer, but it is. You can kind of see the gist of it. And, I wanted to clear up that topic, even though that Nintendo Tom Sawyer game, wow. All sorts of fucked up. I'm pretty sure if I actually played the game, I wouldn't really care about that character. But then again, you look at it now and you can kind of see why it wasn't brought over. Oh, all sorts of messed up. But it doesn't really matter. It's just a character concept. It's in Japan. It stayed in Japan, and you can kind of see why it wasn't brought in here. I don't know. I'd be tempted to check out the game as an RPG and just see, okay, well, what's the whole Tom Sawyer thing? Oh dear God, I'm finding more and more fucked up picture for that character. I mean, gee shit, man. Like, wow. And that's that one example that can always be brought up in that sense. But in the end, if I actually played the RPG, maybe I wouldn't have found it that bad. Maybe I would have just played a character and see, okay, well, this character is actually a good DPS type character, so I might as well use him in such ways. Oh, what? Big lips? Yeah, I'll get over it after like the 2 minute chuckles. And admittingly, there were a lot of issues in the time where Tom Sawyer was written, and there were a couple of topics about racial controversy. So maybe it wanted to tackle on that, or tackle that on. Maybe not. I am not even sure. Yet, I guess we'll never know. I mean, geez, that game, unless there's a fan translation, maybe there's one around. Anyway, diving a bit too far off out of the topic, I guess when it comes to Tom Sawyer, go check out the old cartoon or read the book. You might have a bit clearer view on the subject. And as for the game, who knows? I still don't see it as racism. It's just character design from back in the days and trying to represent such things. I mean, hell, look at the official character art. It doesn't look that bad. I mean, check it out. I'll try to zoom in a bit more. I have absolutely no idea who the other characters are, but yeah, you see, it's just like, okay, let's represent kooky characters manga style, and that's how they did it back then. I mean, wow, if I wanted to go even further with the whole bullshit argument, I could just go all the way with talk about how Mr. Popo was represented in Dragon Ball. And for a large part, maybe I'd be right, maybe I'd be full of shit by just trying to shove that in. Who knows? Anyhow, I'm kind of done and over with that topic. So, guys, again, please do your research, look at both sides of an argument, and be aware of cherry picking. Be extremely aware of when people are cherry picking specific arguments for their conversations and topic. Again, nothing against Anita Sarkeesian personally. I've seen a couple of episodes of Women's versus Tropes, and at one point I just disconnected because of all the cherry picking. But a lot of people just do not seem to understand how that works, and hell, might as well talk about it, right? Talking always brings up good discussions and such. And funny enough, I've seen people compared to how Jack Thompson was trying to prove that video games were causing violence. And you know what's funny? Ironically, it is very similar to his methods. You want to link something to a crime, you want to link something to a specific event, well, you will pick and choose incidents where your point is being shown across, your point is being pushed across. And, well, the same goes with the Sarkeesian. Miss Pac-Man bow tie. Ooh, that's apparently back in the Atari time, you needed to have a lot more. Maybe if they were next gen, they could have had something else. But hey, cherry picking, right? Alright, I'm out. I'm done. If you want to talk about it, if you want to discuss, hey, go right ahead. Just don't be trolls about it, because right now discussions are open. Let's keep a level head on it. Let's not get all intensively on fire and say, fuck you, you're being racist, stereotypical, misogynistic bullshit. No, no, no. The discussion gate is open. Don't try to close it with such terms. It's time to talk. Anyhow, I got a lot of work to do, so I'll see you all later. And thanks again for supporting and being rational about this talk. We still have a lot more to talk about that subject, but hey, discussions are open, and you'll find much better discussion. You'll find much better speakers on such topics as well if you look it up online. You know, just look it up. YouTube, Google, man. And the information's out there. It's only waiting for you to search for it. So, I'll see you all later.